this is a nature or reason. but I'm optimistic. I mean, I think, look, I was talking about my father brought up, as I say, in a very poor part of Glasgow. His father was a rigger on the ships there, and very often unemployed. He was a foster child, actually. And, you know, I think of my 11-year-old now and the opportunities he's got. I think we have every reason to be optimistic. I was just yesterday, day before yesterday, having meetings with people about the anti-malaria campaign in Africa. And 6 years ago, malaria was killing 1 million people every year in the continent of Africa. 1 million. Those figures have been very nearly halved in the last 6 years by people acting, by people doing things, by people being prepared to get out and make progress and change things. And you know, I know it's a very odd thing. I mean, you know, at the end of 10 years as Prime Minister, you might expect that I would be very sort of cynical about everything, and I'm not. I remain completely optimistic. And I always say to people, one of the causes of optimism, for me at least, was and I keep this with me in the Middle East at the moment, was the successful outcome of the Northern Ireland peace process. And one of the greatest things for me was actually seeing people who've been sworn enemies sitting down around a table together and actually governing together in Northern Ireland. And you know, sometimes people say to me, well, what made you optimistic enough to try and to keep going in that process? And I tell them the story about my experience with the Irish. No doubt there'll be some Irish people here. It's a great nation with a great spirit about it. Basically, what used to happen was that when we hit an impasse in the Northern Ireland peace process, we would take them all away for a sort of session in some country house somewhere, you know, where we would try and get them to see sense and get back together again. And at the time, my wife was expecting Blair, our son who's 11 now, because he was born in the year 2000. In fact, he was the first child to be born to a Serbian Prime Minister for 160 years, which makes you wonder what all the other Prime Ministers were doing at their time, but nonetheless, it's working very hard, obviously. So, my wife was expecting Leo at the time. We went away to this country house, and one of the Irish delegation in the peace process came up to me and said to me, well, Mr. Blair, he said, Prime Minister, your wife's expecting, that's a lovely thing. It's a wonderful thing. And I said, well, thank you very much. He said, I just wondered, what might you be calling the child? And I said, well, I don't know really. I said, well, I think if it's a boy, I'll call him after my father. And he said, well, that is a lovely thought. So anyway, I thought no more about it. We go away, my wife gives birth. A few months later, we have another one of these great sessions where they're at some country house. And I see this guy there, and he's got a fantastic suntan. Right? Now, I don't know whether any of you have ever been to Northern Ireland, but it's a great place, but you know, it's not California, you're not going to get a suntan. And so I said to him, where do you get the suntan? He says, well, actually, you're responsible. I said, how come I'm responsible? And he says, well, you remember when I had that conversation about your wife expecting and asked you what might be the name of the child? I said, yes. He said, well, I went down the next day and put £1,000 at the bookmakers. Optimism everywhere.